Hi y'all. Hey everybody. How everybody doing? Shout out to the Paya gang in the chat with they thumb jack. Shout out to everybody that subscribed to the new channel. My bad, y'all. I'm trying to I see my mic working good. I forgot to cut that John off right quick. But we see everybody here. Hi y'all. We good. Shout out to my new subscribers. Shout out to the Payal gang with the thumb jack. Shout out to some of these trolls out here, keeping up, what I'm saying, us a lurking tuned in. But y'all know what really going on in the world? I was waiting on the Jeffrey Epstein case, right? I was waiting on the Jeffrey Epstein case. Everybody know what these people told us about the Jeffrey Epstein case. Man, this finna get serious. Go to the studios. Man, I'm finna give y'all some real news, some real exposure. Cause y'all know Trey ain't big on timestamps, surveillance footage, statements. What I learned from the Kanika Jenga case, I can bust this Jeffrey case wide open and show you who murdered him. Yep, buddy. I can show you who murdered him. And then if I show you who murdered him with the time skip, surveillance, editing, different frames, and all of this, and guards and staff is on the video, I can immediately break that down because everybody know Trey ain't did a little time. You know what I'm talking about. In the prison system, I ain't no stranger to this stuff. But I do know one thing. When they come to the Jeffrey Epstein case, I know this for a fact. It was many nights. It was many nights. And anybody can vouch for this, they did prison systems. You know what I'm saying? If you've been in the prison or the feds, and you doing real time, not the jails, not the jail stuff. You can see this in jail too, but I'm talking about real time. Have you ever was laid on your bunk? And you laid on your bunk late at night at midnight for the ones that go to sleep to the intercom, because y'all know intercoms be going off in the prison system, right? So you can hear if an officer in distress, you could hear if it been a call, a cold white, a cold blue, or a cold red. You could hear all this like a police walkie-talkie in the live, because this is the reason why for the intercoms, you know what I'm saying, in the jail system. You see what I'm saying? Because you could use the intercom like a walkie-talkie. They say all the officers could have they walkie-talkie on them, you know what I'm saying, and when they get the call. But it also gonna be broadcast on the intercom. Right? This what I'm finna show y'all. Let's break this Jeffrey Epstein case down, because I seen this all the time in the jail system. The police will look. Don't y'all know many of those raids when they do a raid in the hotel? Not the hotel, but the prison system. And they doing some of those raids could be early in the morning, or in the afternoon, or close to lockdown. It depends. You know what I'm saying? It depends. So now look, I'm finna play these videos right here. I want y'all to watch this video personally, cause only thing we focus on, time frames, time skips, employees, and what you see that could be possibly missing off, you know what I'm saying, or still frame images. But it all gonna go back to a timestamp, and we could verify what time he would die. We can verify that. So check this out. When I show y'all this video, here go all the files right here. And we got the layout. Y'all know Trey Gang, I need the layout. Cause I said, man, I ain't gonna talk about Jeffrey Epstein case right now because I ain't got all the proper receipts. But now since I got what I need, I just need the layout like this, right? Like this. I'm finna break all this down. I'm finna break all this down. All right. Let me blow him up right quick. And I just want y'all to listen to this. Let's go to the big screen. Shout out to this YouTuber right here. And this YouTuber right here supposed to be like a forensic pathologist, analyze. Keep that title in mind. This is a forensic pathologist analyzer person. You know what I'm saying? So he deal with what? Forensics. Forensics. Watch his narrative at a time frame, and I'm gonna go back to all the reports. What will be happening in this time frame, and I'm gonna play another video from another YouTuber that's finna really break it down at this particular time frame. Watch this, y'all. Let's go to this.
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language leading up to Jeffrey Epstein's death. It's going to be from the jail CCTV. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. The Department of Justice has officially concluded that nothing nefarious happened surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's death. Now, for those of us that have been following this story for a while, it's a little bit hard to believe. The reason being is that back in 2019, they told us that no CCTV footage was captured, and that's what we're going to be watching today. That was the official line at the time. Additionally, there have been other claims. There have been claims that people have seen the list and so on and so forth, and now they're saying there isn't one. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. So what I thought we would do today is we're going to watch clips from 10 hours of footage, and I've reviewed this. So I'm taking out what I think is most significant and most interesting, and we're going to look at that. We're also going to compare it to a timeline from 2019. So in 2019, we were provided a timeline of everything that happened. We're going to see if this footage, in fact, lines up with that timeline or how closely it lines up. All right, let's just jump right in. At 7:49 p.m., we're seeing Jeffrey Epstein coming back after meeting with his attorney.
Keep the timestamp in mind, cause this finna come back. This finna be a reason why the FBI dude that went on to Joe Rogan, he finna get a lot of backlash. What I'm finna expose, he finna get a lot of backlash. You know what I'm saying? What I'm finna expose, what he finna expose, and we talking about time frame, right? Remind y'all, Dick Gregory taught me this. Always watch the case when they were breaking news, when everybody first heard of the Epstein and the people that been knowing Epstein since he got caught doing what he's doing. It woke a lot of people up like, whoa, what is this? And I see why they got to kill him. And watch this, just check it out. This certain time frame, what he finna say, and let's play this video.
You can see him right here in the orange jumpsuit. Now he's walking with a pretty brisk pace. He's walking ahead of the officer right there. There's another officer walking behind. Nothing too notable about that. One thing that surprises me, though, is I actually thought that Jeffrey Epstein would be a lot taller than that. He doesn't look all that tall right here. But there's nothing particularly notable about how he's walking. The one thing you may be noticing is that the officer is waving his hand as they're talking, which means they're interacting right now. It looks like that the security officer walking with him is interacting and talking to Jeffrey Epstein right now. So he's being led to a prison cell that is approximately here. Now, we can't see it on camera, obviously, because it's cut off, but it gives us some idea of where people
What did he just say? The camera is completely just cut off. Meaning you got a time skip, right? I mean, hold on.
People are walking and where he is in fact held. That's an important part of understanding the rest of the video that we're going to watch. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip ahead now. And we're going to talk about the different parts of the timeline that stand out. And we're going to look at a couple of things that are a little bit strange. Now, it was reported that at 10 p.m. they were supposed to check on Jeffrey Epstein. Now,
no, they did. It skipped from 7. In his skip, he just fast forwarded to the time frame that a murder finna happen. A murder finna happen, right? And you finna see everybody on the camera involved in the murder. Keep this in mind. You cannot bring an outside person like a hitman to a jail and do Jeffrey Epstein. You got to bribe and to these employees. Look, y'all been working for us for these amount of years and stuff. And we got a job for you that we'll give you a good lump sum of money and we could upgrade your ranks and you know what I'm saying? Hold on, y'all. My microphone falling. I gotta set up in a different setup. So now look. Notice he skipped from 7. So that means look, it finna go from 7:49, 8:49, 9:49. So that's like 4 hours. When it finna really go down. Watch how this finna play a major factor.
the area you're going to want to focus on is in the back, right there. This is where the correctional officers sit. This is where they do their thing. So if you're going to see movement, it's going to be in this area. And as you can see, 10 o'clock, nobody's moving right now. Now, as you can see, it's around 10:30. There's a correctional officer that's starting to move, and they ultimately are going to go check on the Jeffrey Epstein tier, as they're calling it, that area.
So now look. Now it's 11:29 p.m. Now they finna go check. Watch what you finna see.
And so what's being reported so far is pretty consistent with what we're seeing on the video. At 10 o'clock, there was no check. At 10:30, it looks like there's some form of a check. So far, what we've seen, as you can see, the correctional officer just walked right there, that is so far consistent with what was reported. So one of the challenging parts about this is that one of the claims, and this is much harder to verify, is they say that nobody walked into that area again between 10:30 and 6:33 when his body was found.
Now look, since he just said that, remember this timestamp frame right here. Think about this. Why would you think he would say the report said nobody wasn't walking in this area at this time? No inmates, especially an inmate. Y'all remember this time frame. Remember what he just said. And I'm going to play another video and see what you finna capture her. Watch this.
But as we're going to see, people do go back and forth to that general area. We don't know exactly where they walk, but there's not just no activity. Because when I had originally heard about this, when I read this,
say you don't know where they walk to, and they in this area, and you got all this movement right here. If you go to the layout, right? Look. If you go to the layout of the tour where Jeffrey Epstein was, go to the layout. Cause right here, y'all see this desk right here where the officer gonna be at, they facing this way. This way, behind these doors right here. They facing this way. Right? This will be a catwalk. Everybody know in the jail system, This a catwalk. This where they can walk in these doors to walk a hallway that would show you the inmate where that window would be at. Y'all know the inmates got a window where the officer be checking, right? This where the officer will be coming in and do a count, a secret count. Man, this shit finna get good. So look, you finna see why officers will be coming through these doors, cause if you know the layout, right here, this the desk. This what you see right here. This person got a line of view of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. Facing directly up it. Cause keep this in mind, it's a stairwells right here. So you're gonna see somebody going up the stairwell. This is gonna be the second floor. Right here. Just imagine this the first level. And you got inmates, will just say inmates will come through this area, but they'll go upstairs. This will be the second level. You see what I'm saying? So now you will see if an officer come up here and go through these doors, it's a catwalk. So meaning that boom, they're gonna be right here. If you look at the layout, This the desk. This what you see right here. This the desk looking upstairs. This the camera right here looking at the desk, and this is upstairs. So if you got an officer come up here and go through here, right? And he go through these doors. Look, he go through these doors right here, because here go the doors right here, right? Go through these doors, look at the route, boom. You basically got a catwalk. All these, just imagine these windows right here. That they can walk the route and look at you in the window. Go through here. Same thing from here. You can look, boom. Looking through everybody's window and do a count. Right? So look. If you see an officer going through this door, look at his route. All of these is catwalk routes. All of these is catwalk route. All of these is route, boom. So you can say the officer can come in here, go through these doors. He could take this route. You see what I'm saying? Boom, go straight to here and be looking at the window. Cause you ain't standing in front of the cell though, cause the cell though gonna be right here where the yellow tape is, right? But the officer gonna be here in the window. What? You see what I'm saying? Watch this
back in 2019 or whenever it was originally released, I had figured that essentially you're going to see no security guards doing anything. People are just going to be sitting around, but that's really not the case. And they also talked about how the security guards were sleeping. And we're going to get into that because there's really just a small window when nobody was actually moving or that we didn't actually see anybody move. So there are still things about this that are raising questions, but let's keep going. But as you can see, even at 10:38, we're already seeing correctional officers walking off camera in the general direction of where Jeffrey Epstein's being held. Now, I'm going to show this part because I've seen a lot of people already talking about this, and I do not think it's meaningful. If you watch, it's 11:58, and when it hits 11:59, it's going to skip to 12. I think that's probably just...
Now, keep that timestamp in mind. Now, look, this will expose a lot of propaganda. Because y'all see we supposed to be focusing in on what time frame? Look.
seen a lot.
Watch this.
But as
You see that? He skipped it an hour. Why would he skip it? Think about that, game. Why would he skip it to an hour later? I'm finna expose him. Cause you would have never skipped it if you didn't know what you saw on that footage when you revealed it. Watch this.
As you can see, even at 10:38, we're already seeing correctional officers walking off camera in the general direction of where Jeffrey Epstein's being held. Now, I'm going to show this part because I've seen a lot of people already talking about this, and I do not think it's meaningful. If you watch, it's 11:58, and when it hits 11:59, it's going to skip to 12. I think that's probably just software skipping a minute. It's probably when it saves to a new file or something like that. I do not think that they waited until 11:59 and to have 1 minute for somebody to do something and for them to cut that out. That just seems a little bit ridiculous, and the timing is too good. So I think.
So did y'all hear that? Now, look how he skipped through a whole lot of shit. Let's skip here and let's skip there. Watch this.
I think that really it's just a function of the mechanics of how this works, of how the video cameras work, or how the security cameras are operating. So I personally do not read anything into that minute skip. Now, around midnight, number on the door, it's one of those areas where you have to call to get in. He looks a little bit rushed. I don't think that's anything suspicious. Some people are just like that when it comes to opening doors that you have to call.
Hold on. Everything got a whole lot to do with this. Cause right by him going through that door right there, guess where he finna go to? Look what time this will be. 12 something. They just got somebody out of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. He had a cellmate. He had a cellmate, bruh. And the reason why he would be going to these though, to do a catwalk check. And guess what? Why he would be going in at the time frame. Now you finna see why he skipped this shit from 10 all the way to here.
To get unlocked and that sort of thing. So right now we're getting an idea of this room because this is going to be a focus of some things later. You can also see he leaves the door wide open. Probably not a good idea. Shows that he's not really paying that much attention to what he's doing right now.
He paying very attention. Look. Boom.
One thing that I also think is interesting is how heavy the clothes that some of the people are wearing.
And watch this. Why would you think he would come in this door and start taking all of this stuff and just throw it in her? Yeah. Everybody see what he throwing, right? Look.
I'm going to explain why that's relevant in a minute. One thing that the timeline didn't talk about.
You see that? Look. Guess what you finna see on the footage?
I'm going to explain why that's relevant in a minute. One thing that
in them inmate clothes that you finna later on see at the crime scene in the cell, all those inmate clothes, bruh. I just want y'all to pay attention to his narrative. That's why he said this is gonna be relevant later on. And look what time he will be doing this. So look at it like this here. That's when they will be staging a crime scene in the cell at 12:05. Cause they get prepared to throw some in the cell to make it look like what they want it to look like. Watch this.
The timeline didn't talk about really was anybody else that was involved here or anybody else that was on the floor. The way that it reads when you go back to the 2019 timeline is that it's just those two officers and they're the only people that we see. But as it turns out, that's not really the case. Like I said,
I'm telling y'all now, he full of shit. He full of shit. He know exactly going on with the footage, and his job going to be, let me just throw everybody out, put it in sequence. So all his narrative was like, yeah, this what he did, this was in relative, but we ain't gonna get too much in the details of what this is, where this all would lead to. Right, this door, why he will be coming out this door, and officers on the move, but they told us, yeah, people at the dead sleep, we don't know what's going on, but you actually see how everything getting staged. You see how everything getting staged. Watch this.
Said nothing suspicious about this individual being there, but it shows that we've been given an incomplete snapshot of what that night was like.
So you mean to tell me you had an officer change clothes?
Team timeline is it?
Let me be clear. You mean to tell me you will have an officer change clothes? Change clothes. A correctional officer changing clothes. Who is this? Come on, man. You supposed to have your uniform and badge on the whole time. You just can't change clothes around about this time.
That it's just those two officers and they're the only people that we see. But as it turns out, that's not really the case. Like I said,
I ain't never seen an officer, never seen a CO
on the floor. The way that it reads when you go back
a cap
to the 2019
clothes
team timeline.
Hoodie.
Is that it's just those two officers and they're the only people that we see. But as it turns out, that's not really the case. Like I said, nothing suspicious about this individual being there, but it shows that we've been given an incomplete snapshot of what that night was like. And as you can see, still plenty of people walking around. Still the officers are walking in what appears to be the general vicinity of where.
Now look where everybody gonna be at. In the tour where he just came from. Only thing he finna do is come out of here, go downstairs, walk over here to go back upstairs.
Epstein would have been held. So one of the things that's very interesting that it's claimed repeatedly throughout the timeline is that they didn't actually do any of the sweeps. They didn't actually go and do any sort of head counts or check who was where. And as you can see, the officers are actually getting up and walking around. It's 1 a.m. They're not asleep. That's one of the things that I kept reading was that they were asleep. Like I said, we're going to see a gap for about 2 hours starting now where we don't see anybody else moving around. But the fact that it's portrayed in a way that they were sleeping all night or that they weren't doing their duties, like they were awake, they were walking around. So even if they weren't doing all of the checks they were supposed to do, I think they're more active than many of us would have expected if you, in fact, read the timeline back in 2019. So it's around 1:03. This is pretty much the last time you're going to see anybody do anything for about the next 2 hours. So here we are at 3:14. You're seeing that one of them is up and about. They seem to be walking towards, ultimately going to be going towards the area where the inmates are held. So they're saying that they didn't do any of the counts they were supposed to do, but they are walking towards that area. That's what's so confusing about this. I guess they just went over there, signed the document or signed the chart saying that they did the head count, but then literally didn't bother looking in there. It's such strange behavior. I get these people are overworked. I get that the job probably is pretty thankless at times, but the idea of getting up and literally not even looking into a jail cell is so peculiar to me. So now we have one of the correctional officers walking up to room 46. There's a couple of things we're going to point out about this that are not relevant now, but they'll make sense in just a minute in terms of why I'm paying attention to this. So as you can see, she's not really looking around, not paying a lot of attention to anything other than, I think you have to lift a phone so that somebody can open or buzz you in so you can go through that door. And right now, she's also clearly very hot. You see, she's dabbing her face, getting sweat off of herself. At least that's what it appears to be. So very casually going in, seemed a bit hot, but otherwise it was unremarkable. But I want you to pay attention to that because we're going to go to another time that the same correctional officer goes into this door, which is a little bit more interesting. Now a couple of hours have passed, and the same correctional officer is going back to room 46 again. But this time, it's a little bit different.
Now keep this in mind. If you did time, this in the summertime, AC is blowing. I mean, AC is blowing so hard, bro, that you really got to have a blanket just to watch TV in the TV land. That's how hard the AC hitting. So just imagine this at 1 something in the morning, AC still hitting, and this lady hot. I see why this lady will be hot at a certain time frame, and you will see her later on doing this. Watch this.
So it looks like she's talking to another officer down in the officer's station. So lifting the phone to get in, exactly the same as last time.
When you doing something you ain't got no business doing, the first mistake you're gonna do is what? Look up at the camera.
Now that little gesture right there is what I'm paying attention to. That's the thing that kind of gets me because I'm just curious what she's pointing to. Now I don't know what's in this room right here, but I do know that Jeffrey Epstein's cell, based on the way everything looks, is pretty similar to the direction she's pointing. Now, I don't want to imply that she's done anything wrong, but it's just peculiar.
Why would you say that? Why would you say, I don't want to say that she done anything wrong? So why would you even say that if you know there's something wrong at that time? Right? Why would you even say that? All of this finna play a major role when I play the other video. Check it out.
It's one of those things that I hope that the DOJ, when they reviewed all of this, that they ask questions about this because it's strange and it's hard to make sense of. Now, in the context of what they're talking about, maybe they were talking about going to the bathroom or something. Who knows? It could be anything that she was pointing to. But it's curious, given that Jeffrey Epstein's cell is in fact that direction. And it's a little more curious what she does afterward. Just keep watching. So she's talking to this person, points that direction, which, if I understand right, is approximately where his cell is. Not that she's not pointing to the room that she's getting ready to go into. Then afterward, looks up at the camera and then looks back at the camera again, which I think is a little bit odd. Because she didn't do that the first time that she went into the door. Sometimes you just become aware of those things. That doesn't necessarily mean that what's happening right now is extremely meaningful, but it's
Why he would say that again? It nothing. It don't look like there's nothing going on at this time. So what you see, you know what I'm saying? It looks suspicious, and there's a murder going on, but stop it.
peculiar. And it's one of those things, like I said, it would be great that when they went through and did their full investigation, I hope that those are the things they paid attention to. And they may have asked questions about that exact stuff. They may already know the exact answer. It's probably something completely innocuous, but it is a little bit strange. We're going to watch it one last time, and then we're going to keep going. And then we have somebody come up a couple of minutes later. Now, what I think is strange, what stands out to me, is the fact that it's either really hot or really cold in there, because the other correctional officer had been dabbing her forehead because she was so hot, and this person has a hood on because, I don't know, maybe it's cold in there. And everybody's allowed to have their own temperatures that they prefer.
Because everybody know it's cold as hell in the jail. They ain't finna let you adapt to, you know, like, yeah, it's spring in this month. No, man, that will make you feel uncomfortable. Like, you gotta keep moving around. It's so cold in this junk. That's why you got inmates stay active. Do sit up, push up, exercise, you know, stay active in there, you know what I'm saying? Cause it's so cold in there, bruh. Now look what's going on.
But it is quite an extreme that one person is literally sweating and the other person is literally bundled up. It's puzzling to me. And here we are around 6:31. This is towards the end of the footage. Apparently it was at 6:33 that the body was in fact found. And as you can see, the guards are moving around as you would expect.
So, as he said, the body was found, and the guards, this finna break the case right here. Cause guess who found the body in the original report? The cellmate. The cellmate. And I know this, cause if you locked up in the system, bro, just say like Trey Gang got beef with a certain guy. Boom, boom, boom. They'll move us to different parts. But eventually, if they wanted us to, you know what I'm saying, like, want us to get down, we'll eventually end up in the same part. That's why you see a lot of fights in prison. You see what I'm saying? That's why you see a lot of fights in prison. I told y'all when I used to go live and I told y'all my jailhouse experiment, the first thing Trey Gang said, you jacking, he jacking, and we'll bet on y'all see who the best man win, and we'll roll the doors open. And they used to gamble on our fights, bruh. They used to gamble on our fights, bruh. So watch this. Keep this in mind. The cellmate supposed to find the body. Hold on, let me go to this. Now that's his video of breaking it down. Now go to this video, same time frame.
Zaxby's just dropped new lemon pepper, so you can get that zesty lemon and cracked black pepper flavor you love on the chicken you love. Lemon pepper.
Hello, today we're talking about the 1 minute that's missing from Jeffrey Epstein's footage.
We just talking 1 minute. Remind y'all of the other video that he presented, the dude that I just showed y'all. Look at his narrative. Now watch how he finna go straight to the 1 minute video that's missing.
Talking about the mystery man that appears after lockdown. Who is it? We'll try to get into it because it's not mentioned in the 2023 OIG report. Now, just yesterday, we already talked about the DOJ FBI memo that was obtained by Axios saying that Epstein killed himself, that you guys should stop making conspiracy theories because Kash Patel and Dan Bongino would never lie to you. Even though previously they said, yeah, it's probably there's a cover up. Now they're saying there definitely is no cover up. And in fact, the FBI director, Kash Patel, went on Joe Rogan to tell everybody, you guys are crazy. And we're going to release the inside the jail cell footage proving it.
And you're going to get the video of the cell and you're going to see for yourself. And we will never be able to convince everyone.
So apparently we're going to get footage of the cell, which is why when the DOJ dropped a 10-hour video during the time of Epstein's death, people understandably thought this was footage of his cell. Here's what this looks like. It's CCTV footage, but this is not actually Epstein's cell, nor is this door. This is footage of a common area. Epstein's door is way back over here in the corner. You can't see it from this footage angle, but you'd understandably not know that because of the way Kash Patel made it sound. He made it sound like we're definitely dropping the real video. You're going to get outside a periscope view of.
That's why he gave it to you in a periscopic view. Cause they ain't gonna give you the camera directly showing the cell, but they'll give you a panoramic view. So the panoramic view is actually showing you who was in that area when the murder was being committed. And it's just 1 minute, 1 minute missing out the video, but you saw everything else. In the 1 minute that skips, that's when they got what? Why did?
Of Epstein's cell.
There's just no way that you could have run an op and had people go into that cell and not have any video of it and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy. He shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access.
And it's funny that he would say, yeah, what he just said. You heard this?
Points into that cell and not have any video of it and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy. He shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access points.
So did you see a guard change clothes or somebody change clothes that in regular clothes working at a prison facility? He just got caught because he know about what I just showed y'all.
Go into that cell and not have any video of it and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy. He shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no...
Hold on. Let me do it like this. I'm gonna show it to you like this. Remember what he said?
To opening doors that you have to call to get unlocked and that sort of thing. So right now we're getting an idea of this room because this is going to be a focus of some things later.
See that? Look. Pay attention to all the inmates' clothes. Watch this. Look.
You can also see he leaves the door wide open. Probably not a good idea. Shows that he's not really paying that much attention to what he's doing right now.
It's a crime been going on. Boom, look. What? So you mean to tell me you got this?
There's just no way that you could have run an op and had people go into that cell and not have any video of it and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy. He shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access points into places like this in the detention center he was in. If they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But
That's the panoramic view. This the panoramic view. You ain't gonna see what actually happened on the tour, but you can see the route they taking going back to the tour. And look, all the inmate clothes, look what time they will be throwing inmate clothes that was already bagged, throwing them in here.
Was anybody else that was involved here or anybody else that was on the floor? The way that it reads when you go back to the 2019 timeline is that it's just those two officers and they're the only people that we see. But as it turns out, that's not really the case. Like I said, nothing suspicious about this individual being there, but it shows that we've given...
What you mean there's nothing suspicious about an individual that don't got the same clothes on? You mean to tell me he was required to wear a uniform and he could just change clothes? So now you see he full of shit. Let's go to this. That's why he said this.
Yeah, I saw that guy. He shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access points into places like this in the detention center he was in. If they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
Yeah, it was in the news. It's also in the OIG's actual report. Like, the government report admits that most of the cameras were not recording. Now, I'm going to show you which cameras were and were not reporting. I'm going to show you the exact angles of these cameras. But I want to draw your attention to one of the weirdest things in all of this footage, which is just the fact that there's a minute of it missing. You're going to want to look at this time.
So now watch this. It's a minute missing, and you got his narrative. Ooh wee. Ooh wee. Look how this finna look like. Keep this in mind. He told everybody it's nothing suspicious.
Later.
It's nothing suspicious. Check this out.
Going
Would
up
you
into-
skip all the way back to his narrative?
People are
Watch this.
something, and for them to cut that out.
Here we go right here.
I think it's meaningful
Right here.
about this that are raising questions, but let's keep going. But as you can see, even at 10:38, we're already seeing correctional officers walking off camera in the general direction of where Jeffrey Epstein's being
They
held.
going to that direction in that time frame.
Now I'm going to show this part because
You
I've seen
skip it an hour later. This is where the time skip finna come in at.
a lot of people already talking about this, and I do not think it's meaningful. If you watch, it's 11:58, and when it hits 11:59, it's going to skip to 12. I think that's probably just software skipping a minute. It's probably when it saves to a new file or something like that. I do not think that they waited.
Why you say it's just a software editing and it's a time skip? What? At a time being committed? No. You finna see why that 1 minute skip, what he finna tell you.
And you'll see in about 3 seconds, it will jump and the framing will change. So there you can see there was a
The framing change. The framing change. Look how the framing finna change.
cut. A look at this time, and you'll see in about 3 seconds, it will jump and the framing will change.
Now you see how the framing change? I noticed that. Then look. Look what would be right here at the time frame. The inmate clothes. So look.
So there you can see there was a cut or some kind of edited footage. And it obviously begs the question, why is there a minute missing from the FBI's like prove it tape? But also, what does this tape even prove? As I said, this is not.
You want to know what this tape proved? That's when they got the murderer out the cell. His cellmate. That's why you got that 1 minute time skip once they got him out the cell. Out the cell. This what happened. This what's finna happen.
Not Epstein's cell, nor is this his cell. We're going to show you what that actually looks like. Here's the framing we see, and now we're going to compare that to the
Boom! Ain't this police officer, this CEO finna go in there and come out and somebody come out that same door and start bringing the inmate clothes in there that's already sitting at the door? Look.
official report, June 2023, of Epstein's cell. They lay out a structure of the jail cell and the jail itself. And here you can see it's a two-leveled system. There's a lower tier, there's an upper tier, and Epstein was in the L tier, okay? Here is where the camera actually was that we're seeing. We're gonna go ahead and go through this so you can see that's what it looks like. There's upper floor, lower floor. Epstein was located on the upper floor in what's called the L tier, okay, which is right here. You can see it even better from here. Here's Epstein's cell. Here's
All right. Here go the desk. The officer is right here at the desk, got a close eye. Watch this. This way you finna get a minute tag out. Remember that the officer gonna come through this way, make their way through here, through the catwalk. Cause this wall, the window is gonna be it on the back wall right here. This why you finna get all of this.
the hallway, and right here is the camera, which was not recording
Look, y'all see this? Here go, look. This is what the officers were doing. The officers don't want to be seen on video where the camera gonna be right here where you can see all the cell doors. So when they were doing the catwalk check, that's why you got these windows right here. So instead of walking inside of here, they walking on the outside, you know what I'm saying, walk through here and look into all they, you know what I'm saying, windows. So now check this out. So when the officers were walking up here, only thing they were doing is walking this route. Follow my mouth. This is where all the windows gonna be. You not walking in here, which you will be walking in here. That's gonna show everything. But you would have officers walking here and watching everything. Boom, boom, boom. Go around the window and see all the other inmates and see what they doing. Cause it's finna be a struggle at this time. It's finna be a struggle at this time. And I'm gonna tell you straight up like this here. And if it was a struggle, and if it was a fight up there, bruh, everybody know what cold white mean, cold red, cold blue. If you see any flashing lights that go off round about this time, that means somebody been murdered, somebody been beaten up, it was assault, or somebody need medical attention. Medical attention. So make a long story short, watch this.
Unlike what Kash Patel sort of insinuates that they're going to release that footage, they don't have that footage. According to them, the recording wasn't working. It was streaming, but not recording. The footage apparently had the DVR system stopped working about 10 days before all of this happened. This is in their own report. That's not me saying that. Around July 29th, I believe, it stopped recording as it was supposed to. Now, here's where you can see what actually was recording the day of. So you can see this is the camera that we have access to, and it's looking this way. So that camera footage we see is...
But now look at this camera footage. This camera would have been showing you everything, right? Boom, this camera would have this angle showing everything, right? So you mean look at all the camera they said, look, no, I don't believe that. All jailhouse cameras work, bro. They can tell you that it don't work, but look at all the angles this camera would have showed. This the only camera that would show this area, and this would be in the blind spots. So say all these cameras don't work, but show this blind spot.
Is not of Epstein's cell at all. You can't see it. Instead, this is the guard station over here, and the staircase is like this little, like 3 pixels.
Now this why this finna be important. Cause look what he discovered. Look what he discovered at the same time frame that he skipped over. Watch this.
Until Epstein
Watch this.
around, but that's really not the case. And they also talked about
Listen to this narrative at this time frame.
that is so far consistent with what was reported. So one of the challenging parts about this is that one of the claims, and this is much harder to verify, is they say that nobody walked into that area again between 10:30 and 6:33 when his body was found.
Did you hear that? Now watch why he finna skip over all of this shit.
Right there.
Okay, if there's one AI site builder you need to meet, it's this dope tech from Wix.
So it's an actual joke if you think that this footage somehow had a perfect line of sight of Epstein's jail cell and you couldn't have run an op, right? Even during the missing 1 minute window because, oh, we had a perfect line of sight on his door. They don't. And the cameras were not recording. As testified here, and it's crazy, the FBI director is spreading misinformation going, oh, I don't know who told you that. You guys told us that. These cameras right here are streaming, but not recording. You can see it right there. There's Epstein's cell. That's the camera that would have been on him. It's not there. And yet he goes in front of millions of people and tells people otherwise. It's so irresponsible.
The cell. And if they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
Yeah, again, it wasn't just in the news. It was in the government's report, okay?
And watch this. And this what the biggest conspiracy was. Did somebody go into that room? Because he had a cellmate. And this when they took the cellmate up there to go kill him. Watch this.
Right, so that's that. So now we're going to see the camera that we're actually getting footage of, right? So this is a video. You can see that's cell 46. Here's the camera that was recording, and you can see it highlighted here. You'll also be able to see that the staircase is partially obstructed because of this wall right here, okay? So these tiny 3 pixels are seeing the edge of the staircase. Here's where they even highlight it for you. Again, this is not my diagram. This is the government.
And guess why they had to highlight their area? Watch why they had to highlight their area. Because that's the area you need to be focused on, the stairwells. Watch this.
Government's own diagram. This is the stairway to Epstein's cell. Here's the officer station, as we stated. And here's the non-recording camera. Again, this is the government and looking at Epstein's cell. According to them, there had been catastrophic disk failures and no recordings would have been available after July 29th, 2019. And of course, all of this happened on August 9th to the 10th, 2019. Now, an important thing is this mystery man that comes up in the footage, because previously I was kind of thinking this footage kind of didn't show anything. It definitely doesn't show that nobody was there, because you can't really
Y'all heard this? Watch this.
see it. The important cameras are missing, and there are ways to get in or through the staircase without people seeing you, which we'll kind of go over here. I think the idea that this was a perfect view of the staircase is just completely wrong, obviously. But there was also a whole narrative by the government that everybody was in their jail cell by 8 p.m. This is according.
Keep that time frame in mind, and that's why the mystery man finna come involved, cause the cellmate. Cellmate, bro, watch this.
To the staff, they say at approximately 8 p.m. August 9th, all inmates were locked in their cells for the evening, and there was no indication that any other inmate could have gotten out of their cells. Epstein didn't have an inmate, so him.
See that? That's why they said don't no other inmate supposed to be out of their cell. But guess who you finna see creeping to the cell with the help of the police officer on the video. And you finna explain why that one missing will be missing off the footage. It only just take 1 minute.
Hence, the idea is there's no way anyone could have gotten in there because everyone was locked up, right? Of course, we know now that some of the guards allegedly were either asleep or they deny that and they say they may have dozed off. Either way, what is for sure is that they didn't perform their checkups on the inmates. In fact, they falsified records to this, and they say no CO had checked on Epstein from approximately 10:40 p.m. on August 9th until 6:30 a.m. when Epstein was found. But this 10:40 p.m. is going to become extremely important, because it turns out there was someone, what looks to be an inmate, out of his cell at 10:40 p.m.
Did he say at 10:40 p.m.? 10:40 p.m. According to his narrative.
But as we're going to see, people do go back and forth to that general area. We don't know exactly where they walk, but there's not just no activity. Because when I had originally heard about this, when I read this back in 2019 or whenever it was originally released, I had figured that essentially you're going to see no security guards doing anything. People are just going to be sitting around, but that's really not the case. And they also talked about how the security guards were sleeping. And we're going to get into that because there's really just a small window when nobody was actually moving or that we didn't actually see anybody move. So there are still things about this that are raising questions, but let's keep going. But as you can see, even at 10:38, we're already seeing correctional officers walking off camera in the general direction of where Jeffrey Epstein's being held. Now, I'm going to show this part because I've seen a lot of people already talking about this, and I do not think it's meaningful. If you watch, it's 11:58, and when
now you see how he skipped over everything? This why he skipped over everything. Because of this.
And the question is, who is that person? You can see this at 10:38 p.m. Remember, everyone's supposed to have been in their jail cell for 2.5 hours at this point. No prisoners. You can see a guard goes over to somewhere out of sight. We can't see it. None of the cameras were recording except for this one. And then moments later, we see a little bit of orange near the staircase. Now I'm going to have to zoom into this. It's extremely hard to see, but you can see.
And guess what time? You got this inmate going to Jeffrey Epstein's room. Uh-oh. Because in the original report, when Epstein died, they mentioned the cellmate was the one that found him. Remind y'all what a time skip. This at 10 some, but mind y'all, the time finna skip an hour later. So that means he gonna be in Jeffrey Epstein's cell for 2 hours before you get 1 minute time skip on the footage. Meaning when he got through doing what he was doing, it just took them 1 minute for get him out of there. Boom, boom, boom. And once they get him out of there and take him back to where he came from, that's why you're gonna have this guard come in here and start throwing the inmate clothes, going through the catwalk. Look.
See a little pixel of orange makes its way up the staircase, right? And then we're going to see the guard return to his chair, ostensibly locking someone up maybe at that time. But who is that person, right? Because previously we were told that everyone was in their jail cell at 8 p.m. 2.5 hours later, the guards take someone up, or it looks like that. You know, it's hard to see, but there's some sort of orange something going up the staircase to Epstein's cell block. But then if we cross-reference that with this recent memo, we can surmise who that was. It says the FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed from the time Epstein was locked in his cell around 10:40 p.m. on.
Now look, check this out. Did y'all just read that report? Now watch how the FBI got caught lying, because right there what you see somebody in a in an orange inmate going up to Jeffrey Epstein room. That's when in the beginning they said Jeffrey Epstein was already in the cell. This when he got a new cellmate. They done brought him a new cellmate, right? So now look, so now you see why they switched the time up and said, now that was him at 10:40. But if you go back to him in the beginning of this video, they showing you Jeffrey Epstein going to the room at what time?
CTV. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. The Department of Justice has officially concluded that nothing nefarious happened surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's death. Now, for those of us that have been following this story for a while, it's a little bit hard to believe. The reason being is that back in 2019, they told us that no CCTV footage was captured, and that's what we're going to be watching today. That was the official line at the time. Additionally, there have been other claims. There have been claims that people have seen the list and so on and so forth, and now they're saying there isn't one. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. So what I thought we would do today is we're going to watch clips from 10 hours of footage, and I've reviewed this. So I'm taking out what I think is most significant and most interesting, and we're going to look at that. We're also going to compare it to a timeline from 2019. So in 2019, we were provided a timeline of everything that happened. We're going to see if this footage, in fact, lines up with that timeline or how closely it lines up. All right, let's just jump right in. At 7:49 p.m., we're seeing Jeffrey Epstein coming back after meeting with his attorney. You can see him right here in the orange jumpsuit. Now, he's walking with a pretty brisk pace. He's walking ahead of the officer right there. There's another officer walking behind. Nothing too notable about that. One thing that surprises me, though, is I actually thought that Jeffrey Epstein would be a lot taller than that. He doesn't look all that tall right here. But there's nothing particularly notable about how he's walking. The one thing you may be noticing is that the officer is waving his hand as they're talking, which means they're interacting right now. It looks like that the security officer walking with him is interacting and talking to Jeffrey Epstein right now.
That's when they were taking Jeffrey Epstein to the cell in the original report. So when they locked him down, he gonna be in the cell alone, right? Then you so you mean to tell me hours later you got a new inmate coming in, will come from another tour, and they finna put him in the same jail cell with him. And they switch the timestamp over like, yeah, this Jeffrey Epstein. Well, let's switch it up and say this.
August 9th until 6:30 a.m., nobody entered any of the tiers of the shoe. So we're supposed to believe that Epstein now is that guy, the mystery man, who's outside of his cell 2.5 hours after lockdown. It's just sort of tossed in this memo here without any explanation, but it's never mentioned in the OIG's original report in 2023. In fact, the only thing that is mentioned is that Epstein was allowed an unmonitored phone call, which was against the rules, but he was allowed it anyways, and he returned to his cell after the call, which was at 7 p.m. So again...
So that's why you would see Jeffrey Epstein, look, boom, will be, look, he just made a phone call then, and once he got through with his little phone call, he went upstairs to the room.
We were led to believe he was in his jail cell at 8 p.m. by the official report. And then now the FBI's kind of come out and in one line said something quite remarkable, which is that several hours later, Epstein's returning to his cell, or somebody is. All we know, at least from this footage, all you can actually surmise from this is that somebody walked up those stairs at 10:40 p.m. with
an inmate uniform on. With an inmate uniform on, bruh. This ain't just no random person just walking in there and got lost in the prison. Everything is secure, it locked down, bruh. Check it out.
With the guard, because the guard leaves his desk, some orange jumpsuit goes up there, and then the guard comes back to his desk. Now, I want to be clear, the OIG report mentions 10.
So at 10 some, it had to been going down the minute that he go. Everybody know how jailhouse work. The minute that an inmate finna go in your cell, it's finna pop off. It's finna pop off, Jack. Boom, it's that door finna roll. You finna wake up like, damn, what the fuck, officer? Then he coming in, you finna be like, damn, what's up, what going on? You know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, they close the door, lock it, and man, they finna go to work. Man, they finna go to work, bro. So look what the officer would be doing if a murder was being committed at 11 something when they gave him the cellmate that's an off-duty police officer, him.
We're on it.
What else could be done, like with the Chinese companies? I mean, is there
10:40 p.m. several times as basically the last time that a CO checked on Epstein. That's how it originally was framed. In fact, instead, they basically say that Noel, one of the guards, was actually carrying linen or inmate clothing up to the L tier, which was the last time any CO approached the only entrance to the shoe tier in which Epstein was housed.
Hi, y'all. And what this look like? What this look like?
Thing that the timeline didn't talk about really was anybody else that was involved here or anybody else that was on the floor. The way that it reads when you go back to the 20.
So boom. So when he spent 2 hours in the cell with Jeffrey Epstein, that's why the time skip 1 minute got the cellmate out of there. And that's when they finna stage all the suicide stuff. Get all the inmates' uniform, put it in there. Because you can't take the uniform this way and be seen on camera. Take it this way. So when everybody see you going through these doors, they won't make sense of, like, why would he be throwing linen clothes like what he said?
So their theory at the time, I guess the theory was they were carrying up, they say inmate clothing. Basically the idea is they're carrying up an orange jumpsuit. And that's why you see orange there at 10:40 p.m. That's the official story in 2023, was that they were carrying Epstein, somebody's clothing up. Now we are finding out that that wasn't carrying clothing up. That was actually Epstein himself, for some reason, was locked in his cell at 10:40 p.m. Way.
Now watch this. Let me go to this. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. 1 second, gang. 1 second. One second. Let me go back to this right quick. Gotta go to this. Right here. Now watch this. Here go the file. All right, here go the cell door. This the window that the officer could be witnessing the murder going down, right? This is what the cell would look like. This is what you look like when you facing in the cell. This the catwalk that the officer will be walking and witnessing it. Everything. All right? This where the officer will be sitting there. And she got a close, look how close the door right here. So you can see everything. So when you see that inmate walked up in here, you can actually, she will be seeing all of this. This is what it looked like if I'm looking out my cell and I want to talk to the officer. I can scream through her through the window. Officer, I see you. Hey man, can I get some care package or something? You know what I'm saying? What time it is, CO? All right. Let's go to the photos. Hold on. I need to go to the crime scene photo. Matter of fact, I can go to these photos. Hold on, y'all. Let me show y'all these photos. Right here. Look at all those. You mean to tell me you got all of these? The crime scene photo, bruh. Look at all these is inmates' uniform. Why so many in here? No sheets, no look. Look at this. Look at this carefully. See that? Just look at this. Here go a noose. A noose. Tied in a knot. Boom, boom, boom. Come on, bruh. It look like it got real serious in there. I believe every blood I believe this is where you will see all the blood spatter. Anything the orange laid up on is covering up the blood splatter. This a note. Look at the note. Keep me in a locked shower for 1 hour. Keep me in a locked shower for 1 hour. Check this out. Do y'all know that move? What that mean? Lock me in the shower? Just say like this here. If you in a dorm, right? You don't got showers in your cell. So when it's time to lock down, you know what I'm saying? Well, just say like middle of the night, right? Just say like second shift. The end of second shift is gonna be going on the third shift, right? That's when it's gonna be locked down, right? An inmate can hide in the shower, bruh. In the shower. While all the inmates locked down to attack another guard. That's the oldest jailhouse trick in the book. That's what we used to do. Oh man, we was on 23 and locked down in the hole. If you run to the hole, right, you gotta get your hour rec time. So you know he finna take his hour around about this time. You know what I'm saying? So you know what time his red call gonna be, right? Cause you know what time they gonna roll people doors. You get your hour, then you get your hour on down on the line. Man, nigga finna hide in those shower, bro. You see what I'm saying? That's a jailhouse move. That been going on since I was going to that jump, bro. That's the move. If you want to break a nigga off, hide in the shower. If you gay, you want to smash nigga, go in the shower. You see what I'm saying? If you want to smoke kush, go in the shower. Want to shoot dice out, go in the shower, bro. In the shower, bro. It's going down in the shower. So now look. So this just saying to me that keep me in the shower for an hour and send me food. Giant boys. No fun. So that means if you read between the lines, it could be basically saying, yeah, I'm going to be in the shower. Just give me some food because you know you got to know the shift change. Keep this in mind. The shift change around about 10 o'clock, 9, 10, right? Shift change about 9, 10, well, really 10 going on 11, 11 to 7, right? Think about why you got the inmate going up to the room before the third shift change. You see what I'm saying? He would be in the shower, man. Give me some snacks while I'm in there, mugger. It's hot as hell in the shower. You know what I'm talking about? We ain't gonna be hot as hell in the shower, but you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be uncomfortable just hiding in that mug, man. Give me some food and get my mind off, you know what I'm saying? Give me some kind of food snacks so I can have some kind of. And then you got this. Him, an ex-police officer that strangulated all his victims, choked them out. So look, once you read all the reports and look at all, look, check this out. Look what's on the wall right here. Come on, man. He could have been sitting on his butt, and the man, goddamn it, ramming his head to this wall over here. Check this out. This to say the officers are gonna see it. Not only they gonna see it, they gonna hear this. Not only they gonna hear it, all the inmates gonna hear this. Just say the inmates gonna know what's going on because of the officer movement. They gonna hear it on the intercom. All these people gonna hear this on the intercom. They gonna report this on the intercom. Can we get all officers on the second tier, please? It's a cold blue. It's a cold blue. Or it's a cold white. Or it's a cold white. Here go the news pod. Check this out. How will he hang himself if he ain't got nothing? You can't tie it on the ceiling. And if you tie it on the end of your bunk, it would never work. It's not high enough. You see what I'm saying? So now look at the image. Look what's on the floor right here. Just look at the floor. Look at the toilet. Look at everything. Look at this like evidence mark. It's gonna be blood right here, struggle. All the struggle gonna be up in here. Right? You got to then look. How would you hang yourself from the bunk bed? And the bunk bed ain't even no more than 6 feet tall. You can't jump off there and hang yourself. Let's keep scrolling. Here go the camera. Here go all the tour right here, right? This where they highlighted it. Boom. Look. Now y'all see when that officer was going through this door, you can go through her. Boom. Look. Look at the route. You can go through her. Just say, man, you can go through these doors, come out one of these doors, because you can follow the pattern on the wall. Everybody know when you in jail, you know what I'm saying? When you see certain lines on the floor, now you can't go that way. You know, can't go that way. Better not go that way. That's escape charge. Then they got it still on the outside of the door. So now watch this.
2019 timeline is that it's just those two officers and they're the only people that we see. But as it turns out, that's not really the case. Like I said, nothing suspicious about this individual being there, but it shows that we've been given an incomplete snapshot of what that night was like.
Now keep this in mind. This is gonna be a dead giveaway because you got emergency lights. If it's a fight or a riot or an officer in distress and in the fight with inmates, the lights gonna go off on the wall. So look for the lights, what time the lights will be going off.
And as you can see, still plenty of people walking around. Still the officers are walking in what appears to be the general vicinity of where Epstein would have been held. So one of the things that's very interesting that it's claimed repeatedly throughout the timeline is that they didn't actually do any of the sweeps. They didn't actually go and do any sort of head counts or check who was where. And as you can see, the officers are actually getting up and walking around. It's 1 a.m. They're not asleep. That's one of the things that I kept reading was that they were asleep. Like I said, we're going to see a gap for about 2 hours starting now where we don't see anybody else moving around. But the fact that it's portrayed in a way that they were sleeping all night or that they weren't doing their duties, like they were awake, they were walking around. So even if they weren't doing all of the checks they were supposed to do, I think they're more active than many of us would have expected if you, in fact, read the timeline back in 2019. So it's around 1:03. This is pretty much the last time you're going to see anybody do anything for about the next 2 hours.
Watch this. Y'all see the lights going off at the wall? Look at the lights that's going off at the wall. Man, brother, look.
So 2 hours. So here,
see that? There was a cold red or a cold blue. I believe it was a cold white. Medical, bro. If you've been locked up and did time, that's a dead giveaway. If you've ever been an inmate, that's a dead giveaway. Oh, since the lights went off, Now you got to see the officer respond to this. Look, you got, cause look, if you in jail, bro, you know about these lights. This how you know it's going down in another dorm. Like, oh man, they must be cutting up there. Then you're gonna hear on the intercom. They're gonna tell you what church to go to, what to fight at. That's when everybody gonna be quiet and listen to the intercom. Cause look, check this out. Don't you know how many nights, middle of the days, early morning? Can we get all officers respond to the first tier? Cold blue. Cold blue mean it's a fight. Then look, cold blue going out. Ooh, cause we already know if it's a bad fight. If just saying somebody got fucked up, oh, they gonna call a cold white. That's when the medical team finna come through, bro. Man, the medical team finna come through. Boom, boom, boom. Cold white, can we get our nurses on the scene? You know what I'm saying? First responder. Man, this thing, you know, that's how you know, like, damn, somebody got fucked up. You know what I'm saying? If you just got a regular cold white, that means somebody passed out, you know what I'm saying? Or some type of medical condition. You know what I'm saying? So now look, watch this. The lights go off.
2 hours.
Boom.
So here we are at 3:14.
So now 3:14, watch how you finna see all the officers move.
You're seeing that one of them is up and about. They seem to be walking towards, ultimately going to be going towards the area where the inmates are held.
Hey, y'all.
So they're saying that they didn't do any of the counts they were supposed to do, but they are walking towards that area. That's what's so confusing about this.
Why? The lights just went off. The light just went off.
They just went over there, signed the document or signed the chart saying that they did the head count, but then literally didn't bother looking in there. It's such strange behavior. I get these people are overworked. I get that the job probably is pretty thankless at times, but the idea of getting up and literally not even looking into a jail cell is so peculiar to me. So now we have one of the correctional officers walking up to room 46. There's a couple of things we're going to point out about this.
Now look, just look at all the officers' reaction after when you get the lights go off, cause those lights just don't go off, bruh. Those lights just don't go off, bruh. That's how we confirm a hit. If Trey ain't send a kite on you, bruh, like, man, look. Man, send the kite out. Man, look, cuz just done made it to the 6th tier, right? So look, he just checked out this pod. Boom, send that, tell cuz now, soon when he get in, break that bitch off. And once he break it off, we'll hear it on the intercom. We'll see the lights go off. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't make those lights go off, something ain't right. Because you didn't fuck them up bad enough. You know what I'm saying? You need to, you see what I'm saying? Man, the inmate could tell you this. Anybody from the jail will point this out like, oh man, the lights went off. Hold up. Let's see how the officers finna respond when the lights go off. When they get to start blinking, you finna hear all of this on their walkie-talkies. Even the officer, even you finna have officers responding from the next tour to come to her. Watch this.
That are not relevant now, but they'll make sense in just a minute in terms of why I'm paying attention to this.
Watch this.
So as you can see, she's not really looking around, not paying a lot of attention to anything other than, I think you have to lift a phone so that somebody can open or buzz you in so you can go through that door. And right now, she's also clearly very hot. You see, she's dabbing her face, getting sweat off of herself. At least that's what it appears to be.
Look,
So
she could have been
very
in the
casually
scrub.
going in, seemed a bit hot, but otherwise it was unremarkable. But I want you to pay attention to that because we're going to go to another time that the same correctional officer goes into this door, which is a little bit more interesting. Now a couple of hours have passed, and the same correctional officer is going back to room 46 again.
Now you see how they just skipping all over the time frame? I want to watch the whole video. They said it's 11 hours. I want to watch the whole video. No time skips or cuts. But since, so look, keep this in mind.
But this time, it's a little bit different. So it looks like she's talking to another officer down in the officer's station. So lifting the phone to get in, exactly the same as last time. Now that little gesture right there is what I'm paying attention to. That's the thing that kind of gets me, because I'm just curious what she's pointing to. Now I don't know what's in.
That's why you got to skip over those hours, because if the lights just went off, you got the code just went out. That's why he was skipping all over here and show you the aftermath. The crime was already staged at this point. So now this when they finna be like, oh, we just discovered the body around 6 Come on, bro, before the first shift change.
In this room right here. But I do know that Jeffrey Epstein's cell, based on the way everything looks, is pretty similar to the direction she's pointing. Now, I don't want to imply that she's done anything wrong, but it's just peculiar. It's one of those things that I hope that the DOJ, when they reviewed all of this.
That's why he making the comments that he making. So I don't want to watch him no more, because he trying to cover up for them. Now let's go to this.
Convince you.
I mean, it would have to be active. It would have to be active politicians, presidents, billionaires. Like it's got to be like that level of like. I mean, the fence was there.
Did you ever see what Epstein's cellmate looked like?
No,
bro. Ready for this? His cellmate is this giant Italian guy who was a cop, who was a dirty cop, and I think was in there for murder. I think it was like a bad drug deal or some shit. Let's find the details in this. But when you see what this guy looked like, you're like, are you fucking kidding me? He looks like The Rock.
Right.
The guy's giant. And this is the cellmate. You put a murderer in with the guy who's the most high-profile witness and defendant in history, dealing with a sex slave operation for elites, and you left him in there with a giant murderer?
Right. There should be a guard around him at all times. But they knew they were going to liquidate him. Like, almost immediately.
You get an image of him, Jamie?
Well, I was digging through details of what he did that I don't remember.
What the cop did?
Yeah, he had 4 life sentences.
Jesus Christ.
Wait, but let's show the picture of him. The picture's insane. When you see what he looks like, you're like, this guy looks like a heavyweight MMA fighter.
Right. They were just waiting for him to die.
Bro, he literally looks like a gorilla. Look at him. Far right picture. That one, yeah.
Damn.
Look at the size of this guy. Imagine,
Damn.
Someone got strangled to death and this guy's the cellmate? Nothing to see here, folks. Look at the size of the fucking guy. Ex-Westchester cop gets 4 life terms in prison for quadruple homicide. So he's already in jail for 4 life sentences. All you have to do is give him tuna fish. You get tuna from the commissary. Just kill this guy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to get? We're going to get you hookers every month. We'll bring in a hooker. What are you going to get?
Damn.
I mean, I'm not saying that that happened.
I mean,
but I'm saying if a guy is in jail for 4 life sentences, like that would be a good guy to hire.
One of them was strangling someone to death with a zip tie.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Good at it. He's good at it. Jesus Christ. He strangled someone to death with a zip tie.
Tortured him.
What is his name?
Martin Luna.
Tartaglione. Tartaglione. He's like, that's like a character in a bad novel.
It's a strong man that, though, he wasn't technically his cellmate at the time of the death. He was moved.
Hey, they moved me. Don't worry about it. I wasn't even there, bro. I wasn't even there. I was just 2 cells down.
And you see how Joe Rogan, look, check this out. Keep this in mind of the cell inmate. Right here. That's the inmate.
The staircase. Here's where they even highlight it for you. Again, this is not my diagram. This is the government's own diagram. This is the stairway to Epstein's cell. Here's the officer station, as we stated. And here's the non-recording camera. Again, this is the government and looking at Epstein's cell. According to them, there had been catastrophic disk failures and no recordings would have been available after July 29th, 2019. And of course, all of this happened on August 9th to the 10th, 2019. Now, an important thing is this mystery man that comes up in the footage, because previously I was kind of thinking this footage kind of didn't show anything. It definitely doesn't show that nobody was there because you can't really see it. The important cameras are missing. And there are ways to get in or through the staircase without people seeing you, which we'll kind of go over here. I think the idea that this was a perfect view of the staircase is just completely wrong, obviously. But there was also a whole narrative by the government that everybody was in their jail cell by 8 p.m. This is according to the staff. They say at approximately 8 p.m., August 9th, all inmates were locked in their cells for the evening, and there was no indication that any other inmate could have gotten out of their cells. Epstein didn't have an inmate, so hence the idea is there's no way anyone could have gotten in there because everyone was locked up, right? Of course, we know now that some of the guards allegedly were either asleep or they deny that and they say they may have dozed off. Either way, what is for sure is that they didn't perform their checkups on the inmates. In fact, they falsified records to this, and they say no CO had checked on Epstein from approximately 10:40 p.m. on August 9th until 6:30 a.m.
Uh-oh. Let's go back to this.
And my door was locked for sure.
I mean, you can't tell because the video's gone, but I'm stuck there.
If they have video, I mean, please show it so I can prove my innocence. You know.
ChatGPT gets 123 million visits a day, and most people still use it like a toy. Here.
Breaking news now, bombshell report on the death of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein.
Documents obtained by the Associated Press revealed new details about his final days before his suicide in a Manhattan prison. CBS News' Elijah Westbrook joins us live from the newsroom with more on these revelations. Elijah?
Yeah, well, Kristen, Mary, we were able to get our hands on at least part of the 4,000-page document which outlines Epstein's final moments behind bars. According to the Associated Press, they include a detailed psychological reconstruction of the events leading to his suicide. The documents show Epstein called himself a coward and complained he was struggling to adapt to life in prison following his arrest on federal sex trafficking and conspiracy charges. The disgraced financier was under psychological observation at the time for a suicide attempt a few days in, which left his neck bruised and scraped, according to reports. The newly released documents reveal Epstein insisted he wasn't suicidal and told a jail therapist he had a wonderful life and would be crazy to end it. But on August 10th, 2019, Epstein was found dead. We are also learning that Epstein attempted to connect with Larry Nassar, a gymnastics team doctor convicted of sexually abusing a number of athletes. Now, Epstein's death really put increased scrutiny on the Bureau of Prisons after reports of a staffing shortage at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. It has since been shut down as of 2021. Now, the new documents appear to provide the most complete account to date of Epstein's final days behind bars and helps to dispel many theories surrounding his suicide. Of course, we will continue to look through them and bring more information during the morning. Chris.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre, a woman who accused Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew of sex crimes, now says she is fighting for her life after a bus crash. Let's go to our breaking news correspondent, Chanel Call, in the CBS newsroom in New York for more. Chanel, tell us more. What happened?
All right, so in an Instagram post that we saw on Sunday, Virginia Giuffre appeared to look bruised. She says she's in kidney failure, adding that doctors gave her just 4 days to live. Today, Jules, her representative, says she suffered a serious accident and also confirms Giuffre is still receiving medical care in the hospital. Now, as for what happened, Giuffre alluded to this in this post. She says there was a crash with a school bus is what she's alluding to here. She says, important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers as we were slowing for a turn, that no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. So at this point, Jules, still unclear where the accident happened, but I can tell you that in 2022, the BBC reported that Giuffre lived in Australia with her husband and 3 children. I want to show you that Instagram post again because it goes on to say, I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes. Just to give you some context and background here, Giuffre, she is one of the most prominent accusers of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Many people will remember her story. She alleged Epstein sexually trafficked her to Britain's Prince Andrew and others while she was a minor. Prince Andrew denied those claims.
Yeah, and Chanel, Giuffre actually sat down for an interview with CBS News back in 2020. So tell
Virginia Giuffre spent her life fighting to expose the crimes of billionaire Jeffrey Epstein and his entourage. Her death only serves to sharpen the cost of what she endured.
I want to start by saying it's not how Jeffrey died, but it's how he lived. I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand, and I've been fighting that very world to this day, and I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
Giuffre's testimony was key to exposing Epstein's crimes and that of his former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. But here in the UK, she was best known for her claim that she was sexually abused by Prince Andrew when she was just 17 years old. Prince Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing. The two reached a financial settlement in 2022 with no admission of liability. Miss Giuffre was just a teenager when she said she met Maxwell whilst working at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. She claimed Maxwell and Epstein trafficked her around the world to rich and powerful men. Epstein died in jail in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Maxwell was later sentenced to 20 years in prison.
She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious. She was evil, and she was a woman.
One lawyer for several of Epstein's victims described Giuffre's legacy.
She stood up for what she believed in. She stood up for her truth, and she held very powerful, very wealthy people accountable for their actions. And I think the arc of time will show that justice really weighed in her favor. And, you know, when looking back at her life and this story many years into the future, we'll see that she was the hero of this story.
In recent years, Giuffre built a new life in Australia, marrying and raising 3 children. But behind the scenes, her struggles continued. In a viral Instagram post just 3 weeks ago, she claimed she'd just days to live following a car crash. But Australian police described the incident as minor. Today, her family confirmed she took her own life, saying, "There are no words that can express the grave loss we feel today with the passing of our sweet Virginia. She was heroic and will always be remembered for her incredible courage and loving spirit."
And all of this as we learn new details about Epstein's death behind bars and the seemingly perfect storm of mistakes that may have allowed his apparent suicide to happen in the first place. CBS 2's Jessica Layton joins us now. And Jessica, all of this less than a year away from his trial.
That's right, Christine. June 2020 is the date for trial we were looking at. Tonight, there are still so many questions about how Jeffrey Epstein could take his own life at the federal prison here in New York, especially after that apparent previous suicide attempt. But one thing authorities are assuring the victims tonight is that the potential for justice did not die with Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein arriving at a hospital Saturday on a stretcher surrounded by paramedics. CBS News has learned as guards tried to revive him, they said, "Breathe, Epstein, breathe." Others heard commotion coming from Epstein's jail cell.
So would the news reporter just said, when I told y'all the lights went off when the lights went off, bruh, it had to been America. It had to been a medical issue because they ain't gonna report it on the radio of a fight. You see what I'm saying? Because they're gonna make this look like a suicide. So they're gonna so once you get the female officer, that's why she will be wiping the sweat off her forehead, right? Because they're responding to him, talking about wake up, breathe, breathe, breathe. Because if you died in that jail cell and they said they discovered him the next morning, they wouldn't be saying all this breathe, breathe. Cause they would have known that man would have been cold to the touch. He would have been stiff. Then it's cold in there. Man, the man would have been purple and blue. So basically, when I told y'all, look, the lights going off, and watch how they finna respond to the call. Watch this. And listen to what the report said.
Jeffrey Epstein arriving at a hospital Saturday on a stretcher surrounded by paramedics. CBS News has learned as guards tried to revive him, they said, breathe, Epstein, breathe. Others heard commotion coming from Epstein's jail cell, described as yelling, shouting, and shrieking.
Boy, I told you they gonna hear this. They gonna hear yelling and screaming, bro. It's gonna be quiet as hell in there. You see what I'm saying? And all that's gonna be in the files. Now you got to show the file, like, cause if it's been any kind, if that light go off on the wall, it's documents and paperwork to that, bro. You see what I'm saying? That's like a 911 call. You get the time frame on it. So look what time they would have actually be responding to the call. Look. What time they will be actually. Matter of fact, I ain't even gonna get out of subject. Let me just keep playing this.
Was appalled, and indeed the whole department was, and frankly, angry to learn of the MCC's failure to adequately secure this prisoner.
The New York Times reports guards at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan failed to check on Epstein every 30 minutes as they should have, and were working extreme overtime because of staffing shortages. A union rep for workers at MCC tells CBS News staffing is completely inadequate, with workers putting in more than 60 hours a week, leaving them overwhelmed and not alert. CBS 2 urban affairs expert Mark Peters lays out some of what authorities will be looking at in their investigation.
There are no cameras.
So you basically got a time frame. And then look, since you know what time the lights go off the wall, now you got a time frame when he actually died. And not only would he actually die, they responded right after when the man assaulted him. They got the man out the room. That's going to take 1 minute. 1 minute to unlock that door. Come on out of here. Get on out of here. He finna be escorted by officers. Go to somewhere else. And then boom. That's why you're going to see the other police officers staging the crime scene. Because, you know, they got to put all of that in there before the light go off. You see what I'm saying? So when the lights go off, the crime scene already staged. Boom, boom, boom. They already staged the crime scene. Now they finna go in there act like they discovered the man, bro. See what I'm saying? So this is all police involvement. And then just to showing you, man, I see why the federal prison is owned by the same people that's out here partying with P. Diddy and them, rappers, governments, politicians, presidents. You see what I'm saying? These the same people because they invest in these same prison systems, bro. This make it look like this here. Jeffrey Epstein might have some on the goddamn warden of the prison and finna expose it. He was like, nope, finna do you with her. You see what I'm saying? So now watch this.
Inside cells, but there are cameras in the corridors. So you want to look at that to see just how often were COs walking along the corridors.
Any co-conspirators should not rest easy.
2 days after Epstein's death, the FBI raided the famous financier's 70-acre estate in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Documents just unsealed.
So that means he must have said something. And the Fed, because keep this in mind, he was talking to his lawyer, so everything gonna be recorded. And anything he got coming in or any message, the Fed's gonna know this, because the Fed own what? The collect calls. They own all the spying cameras, the audio, anything you say, they hear all of this shit. So man, they don't know what that man was finna do with the lawyer, bruh. And they was like, man, we need to get that man out of here, because soon when they killed the man, guess where they raiding it now? Look, now they ran the man's house.
Include accusations that the 66-year-old's ex-girlfriend played an important role in Epstein's sexual abuse ring. She has denied those allegations. Jack Scarola is an attorney for some of the victims.
Epstein's death does not end the liability of his estate. Whatever cases are currently pending and whatever new cases will be filed,
And now to that major new development in the Jeffrey Epstein case. 2 correctional officers who were supposed to be watching him the morning of his death are now facing charges. Eva Pilgrim is...
And look, check this out. Now you got they got 2 officers, but now look, it's a couple of officers that are gonna be on that tour. But the ones that's over the tour, like you gotta have a pod officer over that tour, bro. And another officer. So yeah, they're gonna bring them 2 up, because them the one that was scheduled to that tour. But they ain't gonna show you all the other officers that's in the other tour in the nearby area that responded to that light went off on that wall, bro. So watch what they finna do about the 2 security guards. I mean the CEO that's on the footage. Watch how they threaten them.
Here with the story. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, Michael. There are cameras in the hallways of that jail, cameras that are now shedding light on what happened that night. And this morning, the 2 guards accused of not doing their jobs now fighting back.
The 2 guards on duty the night Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide, seen here leaving court with their attorneys, indicted for allegedly ignoring mandatory welfare checks on the financier and falsifying records to cover it up.
We believe that when all the evidence is presented about how the system was ran and how they were severely short-staffed at all times, maybe you'll have a different appreciation for what was going on.
Prosecutors say Tova Noel and Michael Thomas repeatedly failed to conduct mandated 30-minute inmate checks on the disgraced millionaire who was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, allegedly browsing the...
Hey, that's the same female officer that were wiping the sweat off, and that's the same officer that was in there changing clothes and staging the crime scene. Look at this, bruh. These the same 2 individuals that you saw on the footage walking into that catwalk. Look.
Millionaire who was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, allegedly browsing the internet, looking at furniture and motorcycles, and even sleeping at their desks just 15 feet away from Epstein's cell instead of making rounds. Prosecutors accusing the guards of falsifying jail records to make it look like they had. Thomas allegedly telling a supervisor, "We messed up." Prosecutors allege Epstein, who had been removed from suicide watch less than 3 weeks earlier, was left alone in his cell for 8 hours before he was found just after 6:30 in the morning with a new...
Now keep this in mind, in the original report when they were breaking news, when he died. Remind y'all what Joe Rogan said about the inmate. He had a new inmate. The new inmate came in. And when the inmate came in, and when they did a count check, the inmate was like, I didn't kill him, because you were in the room with him.
noose around his neck. On Tuesday, the new director of the Bureau of Prisons grilled about Epstein's death, telling the Senate Judiciary Committee there is no evidence to suggest Epstein died by anything but suicide.
Do you concur with the opinion that it was a suicide?
That was the finding of the coroner, sir.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
I do not.
And according to the New York Times,
I was in shock when I discovered what my cutting board was doing to my family's health. I never post stuff like this, but I had to
60 Minutes Overtime.
Now watch this. Check out this.
There are mysteries surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's death. And even after reviewing all the autopsy photos, reading the autopsy, and looking at the photos from inside the cell, we still have questions. What we do know is that Jeffrey Epstein is dead. The fingerprints of the body in the morgue matched the fingerprints that were taken of Jeffrey Epstein from when he was booked in Florida.
How long does the autopsy typically take from beginning to end?
Normally about 2 hours.
It takes 2 hours to do an autopsy report. 2 hours to do a autopsy report. Keep that in mind.
A routine autopsy.
We spoke to multiple pathologists for this story, and they all pretty much agree on one thing, that without knowing the position of the body, the way that Jeffrey Epstein's body was found, it's almost impossible to determine the cause of death with any.
Now check this out. That's why they ain't gonna show you the pictures of how the way he was found. Cause in this cell, you cannot show anybody hanging from nothing. You see what I'm saying? It's nothing that you can hang yourself. You can tie a noose. You can do all this you want, bro. Now watch this. Now y'all see the screen? If you never been to jail before, you wouldn't even know why it's a screen right here. Cause sometimes you might wanna, have a little privacy. This is what the screen will be. You can put a sheet over it. It's like a curtain. You know what I'm saying? It's like a curtain. So they try to make it look like, yeah, this could be a part of the suicide. No. You see what I'm saying? This could be a curtain in case you want some private time to yourself and get you a little fifi or something, you know what I'm talking about? And bang you know what I'm talking about? Now watch this.
Certainty. Knowing the position that a body was found in is a key piece of evidence in any death investigation. And in this case, we don't know how.
Now, check this out. You could tell that the man was laid on what side of his body. You got blood clots, right? You can see the lividity. Right? You can see the lividity. If you look closely, if you look at all the lines, meaning that if you go back to the crime scene and see all those ripped up inmate clothes and all of this, look at all these whips. All of these whips. So that means he could have been laid on his back, right? Bro.
How Jeffrey Epstein's body was found.
We still don't have that information. So if this was called a suicide without all that information, it was a premature judgment.
Dr. Michael Bodden is a forensic pathologist who was hired by Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, to look into the death and to kind of investigate it for the family. The autopsy reveals that Jeffrey Epstein had petechiae, which is burst vessels. Dr. Bodden says that's a key indicator that somebody's neck was compressed and that you see it more in a compression than you do see it in a hanging.
So a compression is if they sent that inmate up there to strangulate him, that's gonna be the compression if he put a noose around his neck, right? It's a difference. Pressure can break your neck, and it take a little minute for you to you know what I'm saying, die, right? Just like if you get hung like from a tree, you could die instantly. You see what I'm saying? So by him being strangled, that means somebody tied the noose around his neck and tightened it, and they had to keep pulling and keep pulling. Cause you know, if you hang yourself from a tree, you ain't gotta do no more pull one time. All that weight finna snap that neck is finna lock and seal. You see what I'm saying? So look.
We know from the autopsy that Jeffrey Epstein had a number of other injuries. There was an injury to the back of his neck, and Jeffrey Epstein had a number of other injuries. There was an injury. Injury to the back of his neck and had an injection mark. Very clearly in his arm. We don't know what that's from. We don't know if that happened at the hospital or if it's something else. We just don't know because we've not been able to get the medical records.
Y'all see that? Check this out. If you look at it, why he got that needle in his arm, man, that means he had to still be alive. And they at the staff was like, he breathe. I mean, not he breathe. They were like, breathe, Jeffrey, breathe. That means he had to still been alive at some point of time, and the scene was just hot. And just say, man, they hit him with the needle to really off the man. You know what I'm saying? So look.
From inside the MCC.
There were 3 fractures of the neck bones.
Dr. Bodden's key reasons for being suspicious about the death of Jeffrey Epstein is the broken hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage.
Tell me about what we're seeing right here. What are we looking at?
Here is the jawbone, the jawbone of the.
Now, to make a long story short, if you would have hung yourself, right? And 9 times out of 10, the noose gonna end up right below the chin, right here. This where your bone gonna break it, right? If you hang yourself. But if you got all the other bones broken down here, that means it was a murder for these bones to get. Just say you got somebody, you got a rope tied around your neck, and that person, you pulling and you moving the rope. Just say you can have it from right here at the base of the line, choking him right here, and y'all struggling, and the neck, and you know, the tighter you pull, is the rope going to go and break all these bones as well. You see what I'm saying? So that's how you know the difference between hanging and the strangulation. Because keep this in mind, hanging and strangulation is kind of similar. It's similar because it's dealing with strangulation and hanging, you know, cutting off the air supply. And the next thing you can find out how that person died too is the blood pressure at the time when that person, you know what I'm saying? Because if a person snap and boom, and it's gonna trap all the blood in the head, no more air supply, all of this. It can tell if you passed out. Just say if I choke you, you will pass out first before you die. If I jump off and hang myself, you die instantly. You see what I'm saying? So now look.
Mandible, the lower bone in the head. And underneath that, at the bottom, are the clavicles and the breastbone where the muscles insert. The red are all muscles. The hyoid bone is a small bone here just above the Adam's apple, which is the thyroid cartilage. And in Jeffrey Epstein's autopsy, there were fractures of the left, the right thyroid cartilage, and the left hyoid bone, all requiring different kinds of pressure and positioning of the.
Now you heard that? It all broke on different types of pressure. Check this out, bro. If I hang myself, my whole neck gonna experience the full pressure. But if you strangling somebody, you're gonna have pressure points on this side, and you're gonna have pressure points on the other side, and all this. You see what I'm saying? Check this out.
The noose of the ligature.
One of the pathologists we spoke to absolutely agreed with Dr. Bodden and says, yes, that's very suspicious to have all three of those bones broken, the cartilage broken. Another pathologist we spoke to wasn't as convinced and said it doesn't necessarily indicate homicide. The doctor who performed the autopsy, while Dr. Michael Bodden observed, came to the determination that it was inconclusive and they needed more evidence, more information. And then a couple days later, they changed that and determined that the cause of death was suicide by hanging. We reached out to the New York City Medical Examiner, but they would not speak to us, presumably because there's an ongoing investigation, but we haven't heard back from that office.
In the pictures of the cell, there are multiple nooses. The fact that the medical examiner...
Now keep this in mind. If he had a noose around his neck, if you look at the circle and the knot on it, and if you look around the neck, if it was a knot right here, you would see the knot pattern of the neck, right? So the knot gonna pinch in the skin. You see, you see what I'm saying? So if you look at, I don't even think he had the noose around his neck. That ain't what caused the death.
Sketched one noose, this is the noose they think was responsible for killing Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, this would be the ligature, the noose that was involved in causing the death. That's why it was sketched.
Here it says on here, it appears to say folded. The edge is folded here.
One of the things we have heard is that the guard that found Jeffrey Epstein cut him down, which you'd seem to indicate somebody cutting down a noose or something. If you look at the noose that the medical examiner examined, and you look very closely at the edges, it appears perfectly hemmed. It doesn't look like anybody ever took scissors to it. So there is some question.
Told you, and then look.
Examiner examine.
Look at the noose. Bro, I could tell you this. He said he had to cut it. Now you got a cut mark right here. But if you look at it this, don't you think it would have been cut right here? Cause why would you cut it right here? It don't make sense. Anybody can tie a noose and throw it down. Then you mean to tell me you couldn't even took pictures of the noose? With him still hanging in there? Why would they be like, breathe, Epstein, breathe?
And you look very closely at the edges, it appears perfectly hemmed. It doesn't look like anybody ever took scissors to it. So there is some question. Is that the right noose? The difficulty.
See that guy standing while everyone else is kneeling? That's Jonathan Isaac.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Well, how about the other
So
prince?
you got to go to again.
How about the other prince, the one that's Epstein's friend?
Oh, Andrew. Yeah, that was.
What?
Yeah.
First of all, how odd is that guy when they're interviewing him and talking to him?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
The Queen kicked him to the curb very quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's very strange.
Yeah.
What is your take on this whole Epstein thing? First of all, can we just agree? Look at that. So you sure she's 18?
So you're telling me that? Yeah.
She does not look 18. She looks 16. Are you sure? You sure?
Man, what a shit show that is.
Yeah, what a shit show. So let me ask you this right off the bat.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Let's just get to it because I know it's on people's minds. Epstein, right? The reason people are pissed off about that is the same thing, right? 20 years ago, or whenever it was, 2006, 7, 8, Epstein gets his sweetheart plea deal, right?
Right.
After committing the most horrific crimes on planet Earth, right? I wasn't in power there. I wasn't in place there. I had, nothing to do with it. But people were rightfully pissed. I mean, this guy was committing the most grotesque acts you can against children. And the media spins up about it. Many in the media protected him. Why? Because of his relationships, who he knew, who his bankers were, who his colleagues were, who was on the island and stuff like that. Some pretty powerful human beings. And so when you peel back the layer and then what happened? The Trump administration, the last go around, decided, no, we're not going to let that go. We're going to investigate him, right? They charge him, they indict him, and he's awaiting trial. And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information, and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this, do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? But the problem is there's been like 15 years of people coming in and creating fictions about this that doesn't exist. Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed? I'm working my ass off along with the leadership at the Bureau and DOJ to get you what we're allowed to give you. And you're going to get the video of the cell, and you're going to see for yourself. And we will never be able to convince everyone.
Okay, let's get into that. So what did you think before you got in office? Did you think that Epstein was murdered?
No.
No suspicion at all of it?
But I have a different background, right?
Right.
So I was a public defender back in the day. I used to spend a lot of time in jails and a lot of time in segregated housing units, SHUs as we call them, right? And so, and I've known people that have committed suicide in these cells. And I know how you get in, how you get out, who works the system. And so the way, based on public information at the time, that he ended up, the pictures and him hanging himself, I was like, man, that guy killed himself. There's just no way that you could have run an op and had people go into that cell and not have any video of it and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy, he shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access points into places like this in the detention center he was in, which I've been in.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I was told, what I'd read, was that the guards were not paying attention or were sleeping.
Well,
right?
And in short order, you'll see it.
Is that correct?
Well, it's hard to surmise that from a video, right? Where they and look, do guards doze off on the night shift? Yeah. But no one can get in to the.
Keep this in mind, everybody forgot about the cellmate they disposed in the beginning. The one that was in the cell when this supposed to be going down.
Cell. And if they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
but we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that,
but that was in the news.
We're giving you all the footage we have.
So why wasn't that released like immediately? Why did this speculation escalate?
I think you'd have to ask whoever the Attorney General back then was, Bill Barr.
Did you ever see? Do you remember that HBO Autopsy show? Dr. Michael Baden. He's a famous forensic.
I don't think I've seen
scientist. That. So he's a pathologist, and he reviewed the case, and it was his determination that it was a homicide because of the way his neck was broken. And what he said was it was indicative of a ligature strangulation. And it was because of the positioning on the neck where the marks were, that it wasn't indicative of someone hanging by their weight, which had been higher on the chin. And there's a specific break of the bones and the vertebrae that's consistent with someone who is just strangled to death.
I haven't seen it. I'll definitely take a look at it because that's part of my job.
You haven't seen that?
The report on that? No, I haven't looked at that.
Did you see any? Was there any other autopsy done other than the official one?
Not to my knowledge.
I make some good summer barbecue, but I can't match these two hearty barbecue triple stacks from Firehouse Subs.
My knowledge, but if there was, you'll get it, and that's what we're doing.
See if you can find that Dr. Michael Baden thing.
Yeah. No,
Did you remember that show, the HBO show?
No.
Pretty cool show.
Yeah,
so this guy, Dr. Michael Baden, he had a long career of catching murderers, exhuming bodies, finding trace amounts of poisons, different kinds of things. And it was a crazy show, like all these wild ways.
Well, I love watching shows, and I spend a lot of time on planes.
Yeah, it was an old show. It was a show like from the early 2000s, I believe. But this guy was like, this very well-respected forensic scientist who would analyze these bodies, and it was his determination that he was murdered.
Yeah. And my job, going back to the core of what I've been doing since I studied Russiagate, was to get, and is to get everybody the information.
When did you get here? Epstein's autopsy points to homicide. Pathologist hired by brother claims. New York City medical examiner strongly disputed the claim that the evidence from the autopsy suggested strangulation. So let's go to by the way, this is the New York Times, and they never lie. The private pathologist Dr. Michael Baden said the morning TV show Fox and Friends, Mr. Epstein experienced a number of injuries, among them a broken bone in his neck, that are extremely unusual in suicidal hangings and could occur much more commonly in homicidal strangulation. I think the evidence points to homicide rather than suicide, said Dr. Baden, who observed the autopsy done by city officials. Dr. Baden, a former New York City medical examiner and a Fox News contributor, said, I have not seen in 50 years where that occurred in suicidal hanging case. Findings by Dr. Baden were strongly disputed by the city's chief medical examiner, Dr. Barbara Sampson, who previously ruled that Mr. Epstein's death on August 10th in the Metropolitan Correctional Center was a suicide. I stand firmly behind our determination of the cause and manner of death in this case, Dr. Sampson said in the interview on Wednesday. She added, in general, fractures of the hyoid bone and cartilage can be seen in suicides and homicides. The hyoid bone is near the Adam's apple. Dr. Sampson also dismissed Dr. Baden's contention that the circumstances around Mr. Epstein's death suggested other people may have been involved. She said her office had done a complete investigation, taking into consideration information gathered by law enforcement in making the determination.
So this is a perfect example of going back to my public defender and prosecutor days. Mm-hmm. This is what we call a war of experts. You can always find someone to come in and say the opposite.
Right.
And I used to do it all the time. I mean, I represented some of the worst humans that you can possibly imagine on Earth, literally. The guys that were trafficking children from Mexico into America. And you could put up a professional expert to say, and this is what's going to go on forever. And my job is not the forever. My job is to get you absolutely everything that we can give you. And that's what we're going to do.
When did you become aware of this video that showed that no one had gone in and out of the cell?
Recently.
So why was it recent, though? I mean, if this death was, how long ago was this death? 2 years? 2019?
2019.
Oh, really? Why time flies. So 6 years.
Well, again, that's part of what I'm going to try to answer for you.
Jeffrey Epstein jail CCTV erased by technical errors. Whoopsie.
And this wine, look.
This MLB season, when you bet live with FanDuel, you can make every base a path to victory. Make baseball.
Maybe there's something in that file that shows that what would convince you? What could be in the file that would convince you?
I mean, it would have to be active. It would have to be active politicians, presidents, billionaires. Like it's got to be like that level of like. I mean, the fence was there.
Did you ever see what Epstein's cellmate looked like?
No,
bro. Ready for this? His cellmate is this giant Italian guy who was a.
Notice Joe Rogan ain't never asked about the cellmate when it came to the FBI director. See what I'm saying? Think about that, because that's who you see on the footage going to the cell.
Cop who was a dirty cop, and I think was in there for murder. I think it was like a bad drug deal or some shit. Let's find the details in this. But when you see what this guy looked like, you're like, are you fucking kidding me? He looks like The Rock.
Right.
The guy's giant. And this is the cellmate. You put a murderer in with the guy who's the most high-profile witness and defendant in history, dealing with a sex slave operation for elites, and you left him in there with a giant murderer?
Right. There should be a guard around him at all times. But they knew they were going to liquidate him. Like, almost immediately.
You get an image of him, Jamie?
I was digging through details of what he did that I don't remember.
What the cop did?
Yeah, he had 4 life sentences.
Jesus Christ! Wait, but let's show the picture of him. The picture's insane. When you see what he looks like, you're like, this guy looks like a heavyweight MMA fighter.
Right. They were just waiting for him to die.
Bro, he literally looks like a gorilla. Look at him. Far right picture. That one, yeah.
Damn.
Look at the size of this guy. Imagine, someone got strangled to death and this guy's the cellmate? Nothing to see here, folks. Look at the size of the fucking guy. Ex-Westchester cop gets 4 life terms in prison for quadruple homicide. So he's already in jail for 4 life sentences. All you have to do is give him tuna fish. You get tuna from the commissary. Just kill this guy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to get? We're going to get you hookers every month. We'll bring in a hooker. What are you going to get?
Damn.
I mean, I'm not saying that that happened.
I mean,
but I'm saying if a guy is in jail for 4 life sentences, like that would be a good guy to hire.
One of them was strangling someone to death with a zip tie.
And that's how he killed his victim, strangulation. So guess when the lights go off? That's why you got the 1 minute missing on the surveillance footage to get him out of there while the police respond. See that?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wow.
He's good at it. Jesus Christ. He strangled someone to death with a zip tie. Tortured him. What is his name?
Martin Luther.
Tartaglione. Tartaglione. It's like a character in a bad novel.
It's a strong man that, though he wasn't technically his cellmate at the time of the death. He was moved.
Hey, they moved me. Don't worry about it. I wasn't even there, bro.
Told you. So now look, when they put their report out in the beginning, they had to recount it. So what they did was just keep pressing that he was in the cell alone till everybody forget about the cellmate. Nobody ain't talking about the cellmate. See that? Keep pushing all the truth so everybody forget about the cellmate. So that's why when Joe Rogan was interviewing the FBI, they never talked about the cellmate that was in the room at the time he allegedly supposed to be committing suicide. See that? Y'all see how this shit work, bro?
I wasn't even there. I was just 2 cells down, and my door was locked for sure.
I mean, you can't tell because the video's gone, but I'm stuck there.
If they have video, I mean, please show it so I can prove my innocence. Meanwhile, now he's got fucking.
So when they said he was moved, that's when he was moved, and that's why you got the 1 minute time theory, because that's what they're gonna take for him to move.
Sandwiches Jimmy John's gets delivered to prison. he's eating great.
Extra yard time.
He's got a fucking laptop in his room. Like, what's going on?